Again, welcome to Java programming language. In this lectures, we'll begin with selection statements. This is one of the control structures in computer programming language. Again, we have three types of control structure. The first one is sequential. The sequential control structure is already built in our Java compiler system or the interpreter system. Sequential basically means when we write a program, execution starts from top down in sequential order from top down. So it's already built in. The previous program that we went through, we can say that the program doesn't make any decision. We input our data, we do our process, then we print out the result or we show the result on the screen. So example, computing an area of a circle. To compute an area of a circle, first we need to get an input of the radius from the user. Then we process the radius times a radius square times pi will give us the area. So we're going to store the area in a variable that we need to declare. Then later we can print our result. So the program doesn't make any decision. In this session we're going to learn how we can write a code whereby a decision will be making. In programming, most of our decision here will be logical decision, either true or false. So let's start with our objective. Again, here we're going to learn how to declare a Boolean variables and also how to write Boolean expression using relational operators. Normally, the relational operators we are going to use again to write our conditions, logical conditions, and the program will make a decision. If the condition is true, do something. If it's false, do different thing. So next, we're going to implement the selection control using the if statements. And also we're going to implement the selection control using the if else statements. And also we're going to implement selection control using nested if and also multi-way if statements. So our main goal here in the selection statement, we have three types: if and if else, and also nested if or multi-way if statements. So first we start with what is a Boolean type and operators. Again, Boolean type means the variable can only store two items, either true or false. So when we declare variable name B and the data type is Boolean, the condition we have here, we are using the relational operator, which is greater than. So this condition have to be either true or false. So our condition here say 1 is greater than 2. Again, this will be false. So the false will be stored in our B variable. Since the data type is Boolean, we can be able to store it. Now, in some programming language such as C++, we can declare the B as int. When the condition is true, it's going to store 1. When the condition is false, it's going to store 0. But Java gives us option we get true or false Boolean type. So these are the relational operators we are going to use to write a selection statement or decision-making statements, conditions. So first we start with the less than, and also these are called the relational operators. We have less than. Example given here, we say radius is less than 0. That will be false because the radius value always have to be positive. The radius of a circle, the radius of an object, we measure it, so everything have to be positive answer. A radius of 0 means the radius doesn't exist. It's like a height of a person. A height of a person can never be a negative value. It have to be positive. Now, if we say the height of a person is 0, it means the person doesn't have no height. It doesn't exist. So our condition here will give us false. We also have less than or equal. So the first column is the Java syntax. In college algebra of mathematics, we write less than or equal by writing the left arrow with a bar underneath. So this will be less than or equal in mathematics. In Java, we write less than and equal. There is no space between. So this means here we say the radius is less than or equal to 0. We still have a false because the radius cannot be 0. If radius is 0, that means the object doesn't exist. Then next we have greater, which is the third row, greater than. So greater than 0 radius is always true. Radius value always have to be greater than 0. Otherwise, it doesn't exist. Then we also have greater than or equal. Again, there's no space between the right arrow and the equal sign. They are together. And this also will give us true. Radius is always greater than or equal to 0. Then we have equality. So in mathematics, if we want to compare two items, if they are equal, we use the equal sign, only one. But in Java, one equal sign means assignment, which means I'm assigning 0 to radius. I'm not checking if it's equal. If I want to check if radius equal to 0, then I'll use two equal sign. So equality is two assignment operator, equal sign. Then the last one is not equal. So example, radius is not equal to 0. That will be true. So again, these are the relational operators that we are going to use to write our selection statements in Java. So we're going to look one program and see how the selection statements are used to write a program so that, again, the program will make a decision. So here we say this example create a program to let a first grader practice additions. To let a first grader practice additions. So the program randomly generates two single-digit integers, such as number 1 and number 2. Then it's going to display the question, such as what is 7 plus 9 to the students. After the student types the answer, the program displays the message. So which means if the answer is correct, so we have to have a statement, right? A selection statement. If the answer is correct, then print true. Or if the answer is not correct, then it will be false. So let's see the program and then we can talk more about it. So in this program, again, we are using the scanner class because we want to ask the user to enter the input. So we import our java.utility package. This time, instead of importing everything using the asterisk, we are only importing the scanner class. So java.util.scanner. Next, we have our main class as usual. Here, the main class name is addition quiz, which will be the file name also. So the file name will be additionquiz.java. Then we have our main program. This is where the execution will take place at. So public static void main string argument. We declare our two variables, num1, num2. Then what we are doing here is that we want the system to generate the two numbers for us. And when we generate the numbers, we are going to convert it to int. So here we have system.current time millis. Then we generate a second one, system.current time millis. So what we are doing here is that we are getting the current time in milliseconds of our computer system. Then we are going to have it modulus 10. So we know modulus 10 here means let's say if we generate a value 100 modulus 10 means if I divide 100 by 10, what will be the remainder is 0. Now, if I generate 136, if, for example, the millisecond is 136 millisecond, we don't want to use the 136 millisecond, but rather we divide that value by 10, and the remainder is what we need. So it's modulus 10. So 136 modulus 10 will give me 6. And I'll make sure the 6 is in int. Then I'll store it in number 1. The same thing, the second also, I'm going to generate the millisecond. And what I'm doing here is that I'll divide the value by 10. The result I'll get then the modulus 10 of it. So here we're going to generate two numbers, num1 and num2. Now we create a scanner class, the class object name input. So we have scanner input equal to new scanner system.in. Now we are going to use the input to get an input from the keyboard because it's system.in. So here we say system.out.print. What is number one? So the number one that we generate, what is number one plus number two? So we will say the expression saying, let's say if the numbers are 1 and 2, then we will say what is 1 plus 2 with a question mark. Then you are going to use the input object, which the program will allow you to enter the answer. So we enter the answer in a variable name answer. We declare it as int also. Then this is where our decision will come now. We have the answer. Now we want to know if the answer is correct or wrong. So here we say system.out.println. The first number we enter plus the second number we enter is equal to the answer we enter. Then we have num1 plus num2 equal to the answer. So whatever answer we get, we print it out. So let's see the output here. When I click on this, the running, we can see here the computer generated two input. The two input the computer generated for us was 3 plus 1. And the user enter 8. And you can see here we say 3 plus 1 equal to 8 is false. And we can see on the end here again. So num1 plus num2 equal to the answer is false because here we are going to do our actual calculations. But instead of using only equal sign, you can see here. Now, if I say num1 plus num2 equal to answer, what will happen? It will print out the answer, the correct answer. So we enter 3 plus 1 equal to 8. Then is 4. 3 plus 1 is 4. But here we want to generate equality. Equality will give us two options, either true or false. So this statement is true or false. So again, the first step we did is to generate our income, num1, num2, our inputs, num1 and num2. Then we create a scanner object input. Then we ask the user, okay, the two numbers you generate, if you add them together, what is the answer? The user enter the answer. And now we say, okay, we're checking the answer is num1 plus num2 equal to the answer the user enter. If it's correct, we will say again true. But in this case, 3 plus 1, the user enter 8. So here we say 3 plus 1 equal to 8 is false. What gave us the false is the parenthesis here. We can see that we are using two equal signs. So this is to check the equality, true or false. Again, if we use only one equal sign, then it will give us the actual answer. So let's continue with the previous example we saw, we see the decision true or false is made by equality sign. Now we are going to use the Java syntax for if statement. So the expression is if Boolean expression is true, do something, and that's the statement here. So if statement is like a one-way option, it only give you the statement if the condition is true. So we have here saying that, okay, the Boolean expression, if the Boolean expression is true, then we go to the statement. If it's false, then we are going to skip the statement and we will come out of the if loop, the if condition. So if Boolean expression true, we print or we do whatever we want to do here, the statement. If it's false, we skip everything and continue. So that's what we see here. We skip the statement. Now we have a good example here. So here we say that if the radius is greater than or equal to 0, then find the area of the circle. So the area of the circle will be radius times par. Then we say system.out.println, the area for the circle of radius is whatever answer we have. So this only will work if the radius value is greater than or equal to 0, which means if this condition is true, the radius we enter is at least 0 or positive value. If we enter a negative value, all these statements will be skipped. So that's where we can see our flow diagram. If the radius is greater than or equal to 0, if it's true, then we find the area, then we print out our result, everything. If it's false, then we have to skip all the statements, then continue. So normally we use the term, this is a one-way decision making. The if statement check only for true. If it's true, it will do whatever statement we want to execute. If it's false, it will skip everything. So we should take a note here. For example, if we say if I is greater than 0, do something here. This condition is wrong. The expression is wrong. We still need a parenthesis. In Python or some programming language, we don't need a parenthesis, but in Java, we need a parenthesis in the condition. So the correct way will be if parenthesis I is greater than 0, then do something. So if this condition is true, we are going to print that I is positive because I value is greater than 0, so it's positive. Now the same thing here also, we can say that if I is greater than 0, you see here we have the curly brace, I is positive, or we don't need the curly brace. We don't need the yellow, the curly again, bracket. So I can still write if I greater than 0, then do something. Now, if the statement is more than 1, then we need a curly brace because here it's only one statement. So if the condition is true, it will print. If it's false, it skip it. But let's say if we have a second statement, system.out.println x, we have 2, then we have to put it in the curly brace. If we don't put it in a curly brace, what will happen is that the second statement always will execute whether it's true or false, because the second statement doesn't have anything to do with the condition. The condition I greater than 0 doesn't affect the second statement. So we have to put everything in a curly brace so that it will affect. Even if I have 100 statements, if everything is on the curly brace, then the if condition affects all the statements. So we should see the wrong ones and again the correct ones. We have another simple if demo. And here we are going to see a program that we are going to write. The program will prompt the user to enter an integer. Then if the number is a multiple of 5, we print I5. If the number is divisible by 2, we print high even. So what we mean is that if I enter 10, 15, 20, then we're going to print high 5 because the number is 5 divisible. Now, if I enter any even number 2, 4, 6, 8, then we're going to print I even. So let's see how this code works. So again, we still have our scanner class. We're going to create our object. Here, our main class name is simple if demo. So that will be the name of the file, simple if demo.java. And the main class have the main method where normally our execution takes place. So first we create our scanner object named input. So we're going to use input to extract an input from a user. So first we say system.out.print, enter an integer. So we give instruction to the user to enter an integer. So we have to use the input object .nestInt method. NestInt means we are expecting user to enter integer. Nest double means the user will enter a fraction or decimal value. So input.next int, the user enter the input. We store the input in a variable named number. Now we want to know if the number is divisible by 5 or 3. So we are using if, only if condition. If number modulus 5 equal to 0, then system.out.println print I5. If modulus, if the number modulus 2 equal to 0, then print I even. And now here you can see that we can have as many if statements as we want. But the problem with this is that it runs very slow. For example, if I have 100 if statements and my true is the last one, that means I have to go through all the 100. And even if I have 100 statements and the second one or the first condition is true, still the program will check the remaining of all the rest of the if statements. So that's why we normally don't use if statement if we have a lot of conditions. We may use maybe if else or if else if else. And again, we're going to talk about that. In our next lecture, so we are going to talk about switch statement. Switch statement also, if I have a multiple conditions, is very good to use a switch statement. So that's the whole program here. We ask the user to enter an input. Then we are checking if the number is divisible by 5. If it's divisible by 5, then we print high 5. If it's divisible by 2, we print high even. If it's not divisible by 5 or 2, then we print nothing. So the next one will be the two-way if statement. So as we said, the first if statement, only if the condition is true, it will do something. If it's false, we skip. We don't have any statement for that. But with two-way if statement, we have expression. If it's true, we are going to print our first statement. Else, if it's false, the second else section will be printed. So normally we call this the two-way if statement, because if the condition is true, it has a set of statement that is going to print. And also if the condition is false, you have a different set of statement is going to print. So the flow diagram will make it very simple for us. So we have a Boolean expression. We check if it's true. We go to the left side, print the statement for the true case. If the condition is false, go to the false section to the right, print the statement for false. So that's why we call this a two-way if statement. And normally it's if else. If the condition is true, do something else means if it's false, do different thing. So this is an example of the radius. So we say if the radius is greater than or equal to 0, then the area equal to radius times the power, because the radius is a positive value. So this will work. Then later we print out the area. So system.out.println, we use this expression to print something on our monitor screen. So here we say the area for the circle of radius, and whatever radius we enter, let's say 5, for the circle of radius 5 is, let's say the area we calculated was 20.2, then it's going to print the area. We spoke this in the first lectures. When we want to print out the content of a variable, we don't put it in a double quotation. If you put radius on double quotation, then it's going to print the name radius, not the content. So normally the content, there's no double quotation because it's not a string. And also the reason why we are using the plus here, this is called the concate operator, to join, in this case, the variable with the string together. So this is a join operator or concate. So that's if the condition is true, this is what will happen. Else if the condition is false, which means the radius is negative, so we are going to print negative input. So again, it's two-way. Now we also have a multiple alternative if statement. The first Yeah, again, the both of them are the same, but the second is better because of the formatting. So here, for example, I'll say, okay, if the score is greater than or equal to 90, system.out.print is A. If your score is 90 or more, is A. Else, if your score is greater than or equal to 80, then it's B. Else, if 70 is C. Else, if 60, then D. Else, always the last one will be only else. It's kind of like a default else, F. So if all the four conditions A, B, C, D are false, the last one will always print. That's why we have only else. It will always print. And this means if the answer is, the score is, let's say, 92, then it will print A. It will not check the rest of the statement no more. But if I use if, let's say, if score is greater than or equal to 90, A, if score is greater than 80, B, if, and there's no else, what will happen is that if A is correct, let's say the score was 92, it's still going to check for score greater than or equal to 80. It will check for 70, 60. And if it happened that somewhere along the line is true also, then we have two statements. So else if, the advantage of it is that if any of the condition is true, we're going to break away from the if else expressions. Now here, this is a little bit better because of the formatting. So we can see if score is greater than or 90 is A, else if 80 or more, B, else if 70 or more, C, etc. The second one here on the right is more readable, more easily to understand, but both of them are the same, equivalent. We still have the else, but instead of writing else if in one line, we move if to the next line. Then instead of again align them in the same to the left, we tap it once. See here we can see all the else is in the same tab, and the if also is the same. So it's the second one, B, is more readable. So that's the multi-way if else statement. Here you can see that we have at least four conditions or five. So first we check the score if it's greater than or 90. If it's false, then we move to go and check 80, greater than or equal to 80. If it's false, then we check for greater than or equal to 70. Now, if the answer is A, it will print the A straight. So we are not going to check the rest of the conditions no more. Now, if the answer is 70, then 70 grade is C. It will end there. So we are not going to check for whether score is greater than or equal to 60. So this gives us a very quicker way of writing the multi-way if else statements. So here we can trace the if else. We say if the score is greater than or equal to 90, our answer here is 70. Since our answer here is 70, the score is 70. Is 70 greater than or equal to 90? No. So we cannot print A. We move to the next. Now the condition is false. So now we check it. If 70 greater than 80, the same thing, false. So we move to 70. Is 70 greater than or equal to 70? Yes, it's equal to 70. So this is true. So from here, we're going to print out system.out.print C. That's it. We are not going to check the rest no more. So here there's a note. Here we say the else clause matches the most recent if clause in the same block. So these two, they are equivalent. We have I equal to 1, J is 2, K is 3. Now we say that if I is greater than J, and also if I is greater than K, then we want to print A. So here we have two if condition. So we can check here. I is greater than j? No. So it will not print. And here also the same value, but we check also if I is greater than j, if I is greater than k. Is I greater than j? No. So, but again, we say this is better with correct indentation, just for the readability, to be able to read. But both of them are the same. So here we say nothing is printed from the preceding statement. To force the else clause to match the first if clause, you must add a pair of braces. So I have I equal to 1, j, 2, k, 3. And we say that if I is greater than j, see we put a brace there now. If this condition is false, we can't go inside the braces. We cannot go. We cannot check for I greater than k. But if I greater than j is true, then we go inside the parentheses and we are going to check if I is greater than k also. If it's true, then we print out A. If it's false, then we don't print anything. We will come out and then print out B. So with the curly brace there is very important. This is very nice in a sense that if I is greater than j is false, then we don't need to check inside. We can't go inside the parentheses or the block. Now, this is one of the common error we make. We say if radius is greater than or equal to 0, this is a condition, it's not a statement. So we cannot end it with semicolon. Anytime we write a statement with if or if else or any condition, again, we don't end it with semicolon because it's a condition, it's not a statement. Now, there's a tip they are giving us here. If the number modulus 2 equal to 0, assign true to even or else false to even, because we are checking if the number is even number. If it's true, then we assign true to even. But if it's not an even number, then we assign false to the variable even. It's the same as writing Boolean even equal to number modulus 2 equal to 0. So if this condition is true, the variable even will consist of true. If the condition here is false, it will consist of false. And we should be very, very cautious here with our statement. For example, we say if even is equal to true, system.out.println, you see that we move to the next line. Then it is even. Or here we can say that if even, we print out is even again. We move to the next line here. Now the two are the same, but here we want to assign the true. We are checking if even is true. We are checking if even is true. Here also we are checking if it's true, then it will print true. If it's false, then it will be false. So we have another program. This program is body mass index. So here we say the body mass index is a measure of the health on weight. It can be calculated by taking your weight in kilograms and dividing by the square of your height in meters. So the interpretation of BMI for people 16 years or older is as follows. If your BMI is less than 18.5, you are underweight. If your BMI is less than 25 but greater than 18.5, you are normal. If your BMI is less than 30 but greater than 25, you are overweight. And if your BMI is more than 30 or equal to 30, it means it's obese. So here we are going to write a program, and when the user enter the BMI, we are going to check whether it falls within any of these four categories. So we have to use multi-way if. So again, we are using a scanner to get the input from the user. Our main class is subtraction quiz. So the file name will be subtraction quiz.java. Here we have our main method. We're going to generate two random single-digit integers. So we are using the method random. So math.random normally we generate a random numbers, any random numbers. But here we say multiply by 10. So we want to make sure that the random numbers we are going to generate will be a single digit. So it will generate, if you don't specify the type of values to generate, here to generate a decimal values for you. Values, let's say 0.001 all the way to 9 point, maybe 99, etc. But it will be a 0 to 1 numbers, decimal numbers. But we can specify and we can generate any random value, or in this case, after we generate the random value, we multiply by 10 so that we know it will be a single digit. And so even if I generate, let's say 0.38, I'll multiply by 10, I'll get 3.8. But I'll change it to int. So 3.8 becomes 3. We cannot approximate it. If we are changing a decimal value to integer, it will truncate, it will remove cutoff for the decimal part. So we generate two numbers and they are single digit. The reason why we know because random with no argument will generate the values between 0 to 1 in decimal way up to 0.999 decimal. So if we multiply by 10, it will give us one single digit for the whole number. So now we're going to check if the number 1 we enter is less than number 2. If it is, we are going to assign number 1 to 10, then assign number 2 to number 1, then assign 10 to number 2. What we are doing here is swapping. We are swapping number 1 with number 2. So we say that if number 1 is less than number 2, we want number 2 first, then you see. So if it's less than number 2, it means number 2 is greater than number 1. So we want to switch, give the number 1 value to number 2 and number 2 to number 1. In order to do that, we need a temporary variable. So I'll put number 1 into temp, then I'll put number 2 into number 1. Now, when you assign a value to a variable, the previous content will be overwrite. That's why we are using temp. So if I came straight and assign number 2 to number 1 is gone. I can't get number 1 no more. So that's why first I assign number 1 to temp variable, then I assign number 2 to number 1. Then temp have number 1. Now I'll take the temp to number 2. So this means I'm swiping number 1 and number 2 value. So after that, we prompt the student to answer what is number 1 minus number 2. So system.out.print, what is number 1 plus number 2? The answer we get, we ask the user, so user enter the answer. So we create our scanner object input, then the user will enter the answer. Now when he enter the answer, now we are going to check if the difference of number 1 and number 2 is equal to the answer that the user enter. Else, it's not. If it's number 1 minus number 2 is equal to the answer, then we got the correct answer. Else, we got the wrong answer. So here we can see how we are using the if-else statement. The first part will be when it's true. The second part will be when it's false. So we also can have a program to compute taxes. Since we know category of tax, it depends on your income and what percentage you pay. Here we can use a multi-way. We can, for example, if you're single and your income is between 0 to 8,350, then you pay only 10%. If you are married, Then you paste or head of household. So we have a head of household, married or single. Then there will be some difference. So here we say the program is to check our status, whether you are single, married, etc. So if your status is zero equal to zero, then you compute a task for single file. So status zero means you are single. If your status is one, it means you are married and you are filing jointly. If your status is two, it means you are married but you are filing separately. If your status is three, it means you are the head of the household. Then those are only the possible four status. Any value you enter would be displayed as a wrong status. So our status is from 0 to 3, 4 types. So let's look at this program. So we can see the program here again. We have our scanner class. Here also we generate the two values. And we have the swap. And then we prompt the user to enter the input and we compare with the result. Again, we don't have the code for let's come here first. Again, we don't have the code for this program computing tasks and also the body mass index. That will be in our next program. We're also going to, in the next program, we are going to learn the logical operators. Logical operators make it possible for us to combine two or more conditions together. So I'll say, okay, if the man is greater than, his age is more than 25 and he live in bronze, do something. So we have two conditions now to check. And normally we use the logical operators. After that, we will go through the body mass index program and also we will go through computing tasks. Here, since we have a lot of condition, we're also going to use the logical condition. For example, we will say that if you are single and also your salary is between 0 to 8,350, then you pay 10%. So we use the logical operators for two conditions, your status and your income. So again, that will be the end of these lectures. And again, wish everybody the best and thank you for your time.